The stars looked different from this part of space. Commander Alan Wright stared at the main view screen of the Earth exploration vessel Pathfinder and sipped his coffee. It was his 4th cup today, but deep space survey missions were boring. Coffee helped. "Another empty system, Commander," said Lieutenant Olivia Bennett from the science station. "No signs of the mineral deposits we're looking for." Alan nodded. The Pathfinder was 3 months into its mission to map potential mining routes in the Proxima Centauri system. It wasn't exciting work, but it was important. Earth needed resources, and space had plenty. "Plot a course to the next survey point," Alan said to his pilot Sam Garcia. "Standard speed." The Pathfinder wasn't built for speed. It was a scientific vessel with minimal defenses and a crew of just 23. Its most advanced feature was an experimental quantum shift engine that could, in theory, make quick jumps through space in emergencies. But the engine was untested in actual combat situations because, well, humans hadn't met anyone to fight with in space yet. Sam started to input the coordinates when the ship's sensors began to beep loudly. "Commander," called out Ben Harris, the sensor operator. His voice was tight with tension. "Multiple objects approaching at high speed. 15 definitely 15 large vessels." Alan put down his coffee cup. "Show me." The main screen changed to show 15 sleek silver ships moving in perfect formation. They were unlike anything Alan had ever seen. Each one was at least 10 times larger than the Pathfinder. "Are they responding to our standard greeting message?" Alan asked the communications officer. "No, sir," said Kate Dixon. "But they're scanning us heavily. Our systems are having trouble handling the data intrusion." Alan frowned. First contact protocols were clear. "Open all frequencies, let's try again." Before Kate could comply, the ship rocked violently. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. "They've locked some kind of energy beam on us," Ben shouted. "It's disrupting our systems." Another officer called out, "They're hailing us now, Commander." "On screen," Alan ordered. The view screen flickered and an alien face appeared. It had purple skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and no visible nose. When it spoke, its words were somehow translated into English. "Primitive vessel, this is Admiral Grell of the Galactic Hegemony First Contact Fleet. Your species has been observed, and is now being formally contacted for evaluation and potential incorporation into the Hegemony. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded." Alan kept his face neutral despite his shock. Aliens. Real aliens. And they weren't being friendly. "This is Commander Alan Wright of Earth. We are on a peaceful scientific mission. We welcome first contact but must insist that you release your hold on our vessel." The alien made a sound like rocks grinding together. Alan realized it was laughing. "You misunderstand, human. This is not a request. The hegemony has existed for 10,000 years. Your species is merely the latest to join our perfect order. Those who resist are eliminated." Alan glanced at his crew. They looked scared but determined. In training simulations, he had always said he would never risk his crew's lives unnecessarily, but he also wouldn't surrender them to an unknown fate. "With hostile aliens, I'm going to have to decline your offer," Alan said calmly. "Please release our ship." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Unacceptable. Your primitive vessel cannot resist. Your weapon systems are negligible. Surrender." Alan turned to his tactical officer. "How many of their ships are within range of our mining charges?" Lieutenant Ryan Kelly looked surprised but checked his console. 3, sir. But those are just industrial explosives. They're not weapons." "They'll work," Alan said. "Prepare to detonate them on my mark." He turned back to the screen. "Admiral, I ask once more. Release us." "Prepare to be boarded," the alien replied, cutting the transmission. Alan nodded to Ryan. Now, the Pathfinder carried mining charges for breaking up asteroids. They weren't military grade, but when detonated directly against the hulls of 3 hegemony ships, they created exactly the distraction Alan needed. "Full power to the quantum shift engine," he ordered Sam. "Get us out of here." "Sir, that engine hasn't been tested at full power," Sam protested. "Well, today's the day," Alan replied. "Do it." The Pathfinder shuddered as the experimental engine powered up. Through the view screen, Alan saw the 3 hegemony ships drifting with damage from the explosions. The other 12 were maneuvering to surround them. "They're targeting us with energy weapons," Ben called out. "Engage quantum shift now," Alan ordered. The stars on the view screen stretched into lines as the Pathfinder leaped into quantum space. The ship shook violently, and several consoles sparked with electrical overloads. When they emerged, they were several light years away from the hegemony fleet. "Damage report," Alan called out. "Engine at 30% capacity," Sam said. "Life, support stable. Communications damaged but functional." Alan took a deep breath. "Set course for Earth. Maximum safe speed." "What about our mission?" Olivia asked. "The mission has changed," Alan replied, his expression grim. "We need to warn Earth. We are not alone in the universe, and our new neighbors aren't friendly." As the Pathfinder limped toward home, Alan stared at the stars again. They didn't look peaceful anymore. Far behind them, in the chamber of the hegemony command ship, Admiral Grell faced the holographic projection of High Lord Zixar, the supreme leader of the hegemony. "The human vessel escaped after damaging 3 of our ships," Grell reported, his 4 eyes downcast in shame. "Impossible," Zixar hissed. "Our intelligence indicated they were a primitive species barely capable of interstellar travel. Their ship had advanced engine technology we've never seen before," Grell said, "and they used mining explosives as weapons with surprising effectiveness." Zixar was silent for a moment. "If their scout ships are this dangerous, their actual military vessels must be formidable. We must act quickly before they can mobilize their fleet." "I will prepare the subjugation fleet immediately," Grell promised. "See that you do," Zixar replied. "This species must be contained before they become a genuine threat to the hegemony." The transmission ended, leaving Grell alone with his thoughts. The human ship had been so small, yet it had managed to damage 3 vessels and escape. If that was merely a scout. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Grell felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. The hegemony had conquered countless species over thousands of years, but none of them had ever put up a fight quite like this. Meanwhile, the Pathfinder raced home, carrying news that would forever change humanity's place in the universe. Little did the hegemony know that the Pathfinder wasn't even a military vessel. And the real fleet? They had no idea what was coming. The journey back to Earth took 14 days. Commander Alan Wright barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the hegemony ships, sleek, powerful, and determined. His crew worked around the clock to keep the damaged Pathfinder running, pushing the wounded quantum shift engine well beyond safe limits. When Earth finally appeared on their view screen, the entire bridge crew cheered. The blue and green planet had never looked so beautiful. "Open a channel to Earth Space Command," Alan told Kate Dixon, his communications officer. "Channel open, sir," she replied, her fingers dancing across her console. "But they're asking for authentication codes. Our late arrival has triggered security protocols." Alan entered his command codes. "This is Commander Alan Wright of the Pathfinder. We have a code black situation. I repeat, code black." Code black meant first contact with a hostile alien species. It was a protocol that had existed for 50 years but had never been used. The response was immediate. "Authentication confirmed, Pathfinder. Proceed to orbital dock Delta. Admiral Susan Miller will meet you there." 6 hours later, Alan sat in a secure conference room at Space Command headquarters in Denver. His uniform was wrinkled from days of continuous wear, and stubble covered his chin. Across the table sat Admiral Miller and 5 stern-faced members of the Joint Chiefs of Space. "Command, tell us everything," Admiral Miller said. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. Every detail. Alan recounted the encounter with the hegemony fleet. As he spoke, holographic images from the Pathfinder's databanks played above the table, showing the alien ships and Admiral Grell's purple 4-eyed face. "They called themselves the Galactic Hegemony," Alan explained. "They didn't come to make friends, they came to add us to their collection." "And you're certain they're following you?" asked General Paul Hudson, head of Earth's ground forces. "Alan, nodded. We intercepted communications between their ships before we jumped. They're sending what they called a subjugation fleet, something much bigger than what we encountered. The room was silent as the military leaders processed this information. How did we miss them? Asked Admiral Miller finally. Our deep space monitoring should have detected a civilization this large. They seemed surprised by our quantum shift. Technology, Alan replied. Maybe they use something different that our sensors aren't designed to detect. Or maybe they've been watching us, said General Hudson darkly. Waiting for the right moment, Admiral Miller stood up and walked to the Prino. Outside, snow fell gently on the Rocky Mountains. The peaceful scene contrasted sharply with the crisis they faced. Commander Wright, she said without turning around. In your assessment, what are our chances against this hegemony? Alan considered the question carefully. Their technology is advanced, but not incomprehensibly so. What struck me most was their attitude. They were arrogant, predictable. They expected me to surrender at the first sign of their superior numbers. Now Miller turned to face him. And I think they're in for a surprise when they meet our real fleet. Miller's lips curved in a small smile. I think you may be right. She pressed a button on the conference table. This meeting is now classified, beyond top secret. What I'm about to share cannot leave this room. The holographic display changed to show a map of the solar system. Hundreds of small points of light appeared, clustered around Mars, Jupiter's moons, and throughout the asteroid belt. After the resource wars ended in 2053, Earth united under the Global Defense Pact, Miller explained. While we told the public that military spending had been cut to focus on rebuilding, the truth was different. We redirected our efforts to space. Alan stared at the display, his eyes widening. These are all military installations? Miller nodded. Ships, weapon platforms, drone bases, all disguised as mining operations or research stations. We've built our real fleet in secret for 70 years, hidden from Earth's own population. The Pathfinder's quantum shift engine is just the tip of the iceberg. But why the secrecy? Alan asked. Because we didn't know who might be watching, replied General Hudson. If hostile aliens were observing Earth, we wanted them to underestimate us. Just like the hegemony did, Alan said softly, understanding dawning on him. Exactly, said Miller. Your Pathfinder isn't a warship, it's one of our least advanced vessels, but the hegemony thinks it's representative of our best technology. She tapped the display again and new images appeared. Sleek, deadly ships that made Alan's Pathfinder look like a rowboat next to battleships. This is our actual fleet, Miller said. 200 main battle vessels equipped with antimatter, engines and gravitational weapons, plus support craft and automated defense systems throughout the solar system. Alan let out a long breath. They have no idea what they're flying into. No, they don't, Miller agreed. And we're going to use that advantage. She faced the room. We have 3 weeks at most before their fleet arrives. I want every ship on high alert but hidden. We'll maintain the illusion that Earth is relatively defenseless until the perfect moment. As the meeting continued deep into the night, planning Earth's defense, Alan thought about his small crew on the Pathfinder. They had unknowingly sparked what might become the first interstellar war in human history. But thanks to decades of secret preparation, it might not be humanity's last stand, but rather the hegemony's. Across the vast emptiness of space, Admiral Grell stood on the bridge of the massive warship Inevitable Conquest, flagship of the hegemony, subjugation fleet. 200 warships moved in perfect formation behind him, each carrying enough firepower to level a city. Status report, Grell demanded of his second-in-command. The fleet is at peak readiness, Admiral, replied Commander Vex. The human home system is 10 days away at current speed. Excellent. Grell studied the holographic projection of Earth's solar system, based on long-range scans and data collected over decades of distant observation. Our intelligence suggests they have minimal orbital defenses and perhaps 20 primitive warships. After seeing what one of their scout ships could do, should we be concerned? Vex asked cautiously. Grell's 4 eyes narrowed. That scout vessel caught us unprepared. We won't make the same mistake again. 200 ships against their 20. The outcome is inevitable. As the hegemony wills it, Vex responded with the traditional phrase. Grell turned back to the viewport, watching the stars streak by. In his 10,000 years of life, he had overseen the subjugation of 12 species. Humans would be the 13th. Little did he know that the real surprise was yet to come. 3 weeks passed quickly. Earth's military leaders worked day and night finalizing their strategy. Throughout the solar system, human ships and defense platforms remained hidden, disguised as mining operations or scientific outposts. On the surface, everything seemed normal. People went to work, children attended school, and no public announcements were made about the coming threat. Commander Alan Wright had been assigned to the flagship Defender, serving directly under Admiral Susan Miller. The massive warship was currently hidden in the shadow of Jupiter, along with 69 other battleships and hundreds of support vessels. Alan stood on the Defender's bridge, watching as crew members ran final system checks. The ship was 5 times larger than the Pathfinder, and armed with weapons he had only heard rumors about before: antimatter torpedoes, gravitational disruptors, and energy shields that could withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons. "Nervous?" asked a voice behind him. Alan turned to see Admiral Miller approaching. Unlike most of the crew in their formal uniforms, she wore a simple jumpsuit with only small rank insignia on the collar. "A little," Alan admitted. 3 weeks ago I was mapping mining routes. Now I'm about to be part of humanity's first interstellar battle." Miller nodded. "Life takes unexpected turns." She lowered her voice. "Our long-range sensors detected the hegemony fleet entering the outer solar system an hour ago. They'll reach Mars by tomorrow." "Does the civilian population know yet?" "No," Miller replied. "The Global Council decided to wait. If we win, there's no need to cause panic. If we lose..." She left the sentence unfinished. The next morning, Alan stood at his new station on the Defender's bridge. The main screen showed the approaching hegemony fleet, 200 warships in tight formation heading straight for Mars. "They're scanning the planet and orbital facilities," reported Lieutenant Grace Martinez from the tactical station. "No weapons fire yet." "They're looking for our fleet," Miller said. "Let them keep looking." The massive alien armada moved past Mars, encountering only automated mining platforms and research stations. The few human personnel on these facilities had been quietly evacuated over the past week. "Admiral," called out the communications officer, "we're intercepting transmissions between their ships. Our translation software is processing them now." Minutes later, the translated conversation played over the bridge speakers. "Where is their defense fleet?" It was Admiral Grell's voice. "Scans show only civilian structures." "Perhaps they are hiding on the far side of their moon," another voice suggested. "Spread out the fleet," Grell ordered. "Find them. They must have had time to mobilize." Miller smiled slightly. "They're confused. Good. Lieutenant Martinez, is the Prometheus protocol ready?" "Yes, Admiral," Martinez replied. "All automated defense platforms are armed and awaiting your command." Miller nodded. "Not yet. Let them get closer to Earth." Hours passed as the hegemony fleet approached Earth. They moved cautiously now, clearly expecting an ambush. Smaller scout ships flew ahead of the main fleet, scanning for hidden dangers. "They're entering optimal range, Admiral," Martinez reported. "Closest ships are nearing the moon's orbit." Miller stood. "Open a channel to all Earth defense forces." When the communications officer nodded, Miller spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Miller. Execute Prometheus protocol. I repeat, execute Prometheus protocol." Across the solar system, hidden weapon platforms suddenly powered up. Throughout the asteroid belt, what appeared to be mining lasers rotated toward the hegemony fleet. On Mars's tiny moons, Phobos and Deimos, what looked like scientific equipment revealed themselves as launch bays, releasing thousands of small drone fighters. On the main screen, Alan watched as the first wave of Earth's defense grid activated. The hegemony fleet was caught completely by surprise. "First wave impact in 3, 2, 1. Martinez counted down. The screen lit up as hundreds of energy beams struck the hegemony vessels simultaneously. 30 alien ships lost power immediately, their engines disabled by the precisely targeted strikes. Second wave launching now, Martinez announced as the drone fighters from Mars moons swarmed toward the enemy fleet. The bridge crew watched in silence as the small, unmanned craft weaved between the larger hegemony vessels. They were too small to cause significant damage on their own, but they targeted the aliens' weapon systems and sensors with surgical precision. Admiral Grell is broadcasting to his fleet, the communications officer reported. He sounds panicked. Miller smiled. Good. Now it's our turn. Signal the Jupiter fleet. Prepare to engage. Alan felt the deck hum beneath his feet as the Defender and the rest of Earth's hidden warships powered up their engines. The massive fleet moved out from behind Jupiter, their stealth fields dropping to reveal humanity's true military might. Put me through to the hegemony flagship, Miller ordered. When the connection was established, the bridge screen showed Admiral Grell's four-eyed face. All four eyes widened in shock as he saw Miller. This is Admiral Susan Miller of Earth Space Command, Miller said calmly. The vessel you encountered at Proxima Centauri was an unarmed scientific scout. What you face now is humanity's actual defense force. Your invasion has violated our sovereignty and we are responding accordingly. Impossible, Grell whispered. Our intelligence was wrong, Miller interrupted. You're outmatched and surrounded. Power down your weapons and prepare to discuss surrender terms. The hegemony does not surrender, Grell replied, his voice regaining some strength. We have conquered countless worlds. Your deception may have given you a temporary advantage, but we still outnumber you. Miller's expression hardened. Count again, Admiral. The screen split to show the tactical display. The hegemony fleet was indeed larger, but 30 of their ships were already disabled. The drone fighters continued to disable weapon systems on dozens more, and now Earth's main battle fleet approached from behind, cutting off their retreat. Earth Defense Fleet, engage, Miller ordered. The Defender surged forward, leading the charge. Alan held onto his console as the massive ship accelerated. Around them, the rest of Earth's fleet moved in perfect formation. Weapons ready. Target their engines and weapons only, Miller ordered. We want prisoners, not casualties. The space between Jupiter and Earth lit up with weapons fire. The hegemony ships fought back fiercely, but they were already damaged and surrounded. An hour into the battle, 50 more alien vessels had been disabled. On the hegemony flagship, Admiral Grell watched in horror as his fleet was systematically taken apart. These were not the actions of a primitive species. The humans fought with precision and coordination that spoke of centuries of military experience. How is this possible? His second-in-command asked. They were supposed to be defenseless. Grell had no answer. Their intelligence reports, gathered over decades of distant observation, had shown humans as barely capable of interstellar travel. There had been no signs of this level of military technology or tactical skill. And now, as he watched another wave of his ships lose power, Grell faced the unthinkable possibility. The mighty hegemony might actually lose this battle. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Defender moved through the chaos like a shark through water, its advanced weapons disabling hegemony vessels with surgical precision. Commander Alan Wright stood at his station, coordinating attacks with a calm that surprised even himself. Status report, Admiral Miller called out, her voice steady despite the explosion that had just rocked the bridge. 78 enemy vessels disabled, Lieutenant Martinez reported. 23 destroyed, they self-destructed rather than surrender. Our losses are minimal. 6 drone fighters and 3 defense platforms. No human casualties yet. Alan studied the tactical display. The hegemony fleet was breaking formation, individual ships trying to escape, but Earth's forces had them surrounded. Admiral, the communications officer called out. We're receiving a signal from the hegemony flagship. They're requesting a ceasefire. Miller raised an eyebrow. Put it through. Admiral Grell's face appeared on screen again. He looked different now. His purple skin had paled to a sickly lavender and his 4 eyes darted nervously. Admiral Miller, he said stiffly, this conflict is causing unnecessary losses on both sides. I propose a temporary halt to hostilities while we discuss options. You mean while you surrender? Miller replied coolly. Grell bristled. The hegemony does not. The hegemony is losing this battle, Miller interrupted. You have two choices, Admiral. Surrender now, or we continue until every one of your ships is disabled or destroyed. You have 5 minutes to decide. She cut the transmission and turned to Alan. Prepare a boarding party. If they surrender, I want you to lead the team onto their flagship. Alan blinked in surprise. Me? But I'm not. You're the only human who's faced them before, Miller said, and you've proven you can handle yourself. Besides, there's a certain poetry to it. The commander of the scout ship they dismissed leading the boarding party. 5 minutes later, the communication channel reopened. Grell's expression was grim. We will cease fire, he said, each word clearly painful to speak. But I must insist these are negotiations, not a surrender. Miller nodded. Agreed. Power down your weapon systems and prepare to receive our representatives. An hour later, Alan found himself aboard a shuttle approaching the massive Hegemony flagship. With him were 5 Space Marines and Dr. Linda Patel, Earth's leading xenolinguist. The shuttle pilot navigated carefully through the debris field that had once been proud Hegemony warships. Remember, Alan told his team, this isn't officially a surrender. Be respectful but cautious. We don't know how dangerous they are up close. The shuttle docked with the alien vessel, and Alan led his team through the airlock. 4 Hegemony guards met them, their weapons holstered but visible. The aliens were taller than humans, with 4 arms in addition to their 4 eyes. They wore ornate armor that seemed more ceremonial than practical. This way, one of them said in surprisingly good English. Admiral Grell awaits you in the command center. The human team was led through corridors lined with strange technology. Dr. Patel quietly recorded everything with a small device on her wrist. The ship was impressive, larger than any human vessel. But Alan noticed signs of old age in the sick, worn floor panels and patched wall sections. The command center was a large circular room with a central platform where Grell stood waiting. Dozens of alien crew members worked at stations around the perimeter, occasionally casting nervous glances at the humans. Commander Wright, Grell said as they approached. We meet at last. Admiral Grell, Alan replied with a polite nod. I must admit, Grell continued, your species has surprised me. In 10,000 years of service to the hegemony, I have never encountered such deception. Alan kept his expression neutral. It wasn't deception, Admiral. You made assumptions based on limited information. Perhaps, Grell conceded. But now we must discuss terms. The Hegemony Council will not accept a total defeat. The Hegemony Council isn't here, Alan pointed out. More than half your fleet is disabled. You're in no position to dictate terms. Before Grell could respond, one of his officers rushed to his side and whispered urgently in his ear. Grell's 4 eyes widened. Impossible, he hissed. Check again. The officer hurried away, and Grell turned back to Alan with a new wariness. Our long-range sensors have detected additional human fleets moving in from the outer system, he said. Fleets that were not part of this battle. Alan kept his face carefully blank, though this was news to him as well. As I said, you made assumptions based on limited information. Back on the Defender, Admiral Miller received the same report. Hidden human colonies on distant moons of Saturn and Neptune had revealed themselves, launching their own defense fleets. These were settlements unknown even to most of Earth's military, the ultimate backup plan. Miller allowed herself a small smile. The plan had worked better than anyone could have hoped. Not only had they defeated the invasion force, but they had also maintained their greatest secret. Humanity was far more widespread and powerful than even their own defenders knew. On the Hegemony flagship, negotiations continued. Grell had lost his earlier confidence, now acutely aware that his situation was even worse than he had thought. The terms are simple, Alan explained. The Hegemony will recognize Earth and all human colonies as sovereign territory. You will provide reparations for your unprovoked attack, and you will acknowledge humanity as an equal power, not a subject race. The Council will never agree, Grell argued, but his tone lacked conviction. Then the Council can come negotiate themselves, Alan replied. after we disable the rest of your fleet and send you home in a single ship to explain your failure." Hours later, Alan returned to the Defender with the signed preliminary agreement. Admiral Miller read it carefully and nodded her approval. "Well, done, Commander," she said. "You've helped secure humanity's first interstellar treaty." "They're still dangerous," Alan warned. "Grell mentioned this Hegemony Council several times. I get the impression they're not used to failure." "No empire is," Miller agreed. "But they've never faced humanity before." As the Earth fleet began the process of escorting the remaining Hegemony vessels to the edge of the solar system, news of the victory spread throughout human territory. For the first time, the public learned of the hidden fleets and defenses that had protected them for decades. In the High Council chamber of the Hegemony homeworld, 14 ancient aliens sat in stunned silence as they received Grell's report. For 10,000 years, the Hegemony had expanded unchallenged, absorbing or crushing all who opposed them. Until now. "This changes everything," said High Lord Zixar finally. "If the humans are this powerful, how many other species have we underestimated?" No one had an answer. But across the galaxy, as news spread of the Hegemony's defeat, countless subjugated races began to wonder the same thing. And on Earth, Admiral Miller and Commander Wright watched the stars with new eyes, knowing that this was just the beginning. 1 month after the battle, representatives from Earth traveled to the neutral planet Vex Prime for formal peace negotiations with the Hegemony Council. The human delegation included Admiral Susan Miller, Commander Alan Wright, and Jack Wilson, Earth's top diplomat. They traveled aboard the Defender, escorted by 10 warships, a show of strength that wasn't lost on the Hegemony. The Hegemony's capital ship, the Eternal Dominion, waited in orbit. It was 3 times larger than the Defender, and decorated with gold and silver markings that showed its importance. Admiral Grell served as their guide, leading the humans to the grand meeting hall where the council waited. The 14 members of the Hegemony Council sat on raised platforms, looking down at the humans with their 4 eyes. High Lord Zixar, their leader, wore elaborate robes and a crown-like device on his head. "We welcome the representatives of Earth," Zixar said, his tone formal but cold. "This is an historic occasion. In 10,000 years, the Hegemony has never entered into equal negotiations with another species." "There's a first time for everything," Jack Wilson replied with a diplomatic smile. He was a short man with a calm manner that hid a sharp mind. "We appreciate the opportunity to establish peaceful relations." The negotiations lasted 5 days. The Hegemony representatives fought against every term, trying to preserve their dignity and power. But everyone in the room knew the truth. Humanity had defeated their invasion force and revealed additional fleets beyond that. The balance of power had shifted. On the final day, the treaty was ready. Its terms were simple, but revolutionary. The Hegemony would recognize Earth and all human territories as sovereign and independent. They would pay reparations for their unprovoked attack. Most importantly, they would acknowledge humanity as an equal power in the galaxy, not a subject race. When the time came to sign, High Lord Zixar hesitated. His hand hovered over the document as his 4 eyes studied the human delegation. "I still do not understand," he said quietly. "How did a species we barely noticed become so powerful? Our observations showed you fighting among yourselves just a century ago." "That's precisely why," Admiral Miller replied. "We fought ourselves to the brink of destruction. When we finally united, we vowed never to be vulnerable again. But your technology, your fleets, your defensive systems, they were all hidden, even from your own people." Miller nodded. "We learned caution. Better to be underestimated than targeted." Zixar considered this, then finally signed the document. As he placed his seal beside his signature, he looked at Alan. "Commander Wright," he said, "you were correct when you told Admiral Grell that we made assumptions based on limited information. A costly mistake." Alan nodded politely but said nothing. He understood that for a species used to 10,000 years of dominance, this moment was deeply painful. Back on Earth, the news of the treaty was met with celebration. For the first time, Humanity knew they were not alone in the universe, and they had proven they could defend themselves. In a quiet moment aboard the Defender, during their journey home, Alan found Admiral Miller alone on the observation deck looking at the stars. "Do you think they'll honor the treaty?" he asked. Miller considered the question. "For now, but empires don't change overnight. The hegemony has existed for 10,000 years. They're not used to equals." "They'll be back, won't they?" Alan said. It wasn't really a question. "Maybe not soon, but eventually," Miller agreed. "The hegemony doesn't know how to exist without being the dominant power." "Then we'll be ready," Alan said firmly. Miller smiled slightly. "Yes. And next time they won't have the luxury of underestimating us." She turned to face him fully. "The Global Council has approved a new initiative. We're expanding our exploration efforts, establishing contact with other species before the hegemony can reach them, and they want you to lead the first mission." Alan was surprised. "Me? But I'm not—" "You're exactly what we need," Miller interrupted. "Someone who doesn't underestimate threats, but doesn't see conflict either. Someone who can think quickly when facing the unknown." She handed him a data pad. "The Pathfinder 2 is almost complete. A proper exploration vessel this time with a crew of 100. Alan looked at the specifications on the pad and felt a surge of excitement. The new ship was everything the original Pathfinder wasn't: well-armed, properly shielded, and equipped with the latest version of the quantum shift engines. "Your mission will be to find allies," Miller continued. "The hegemony has dominated this part of the galaxy for too long. There must be other species who would welcome an alternative." 3 months later, Commander, now Captain, Alan Wright stood on the bridge of the Pathfinder 2. The sleek vessel hummed with power as final launch preparations were completed. "All systems ready, Captain," reported his first officer, Olivia Bennett, who had served with him on the original Pathfinder. "Set course for the Tau Ceti system," Alan ordered. "Let's see who else is out there." As the Pathfinder 2 left Earth's orbit, Alan thought about how much had changed. A simple survey mission had revealed humanity's greatest threat, and perhaps their greatest opportunity. Back in the hegemony capital, High Lord Zixar summoned his most trusted advisors. "The humans must be contained," he said. "Not through direct confrontation. We've seen how that ends. But there are other ways to limit a species' influence." "What do you propose, my lord?" asked one advisor. "We must reach potential allies before they do," Zixar replied. "And we must learn more about these humans, their hidden colonies, their true military strength, their plans. Knowledge is power." But even as the hegemony plotted, they faced a new problem. Word of their defeat had spread throughout their territories. Species that had been subjugated for thousands of years began to question hegemony authority. Small rebellions flared on distant worlds. Demands for greater autonomy grew louder. The galaxy was changing. The balance of power that had existed for 10,000 years was shifting. And humanity, a species that had been unknown to the wider galaxy just months ago, now stood at the center of this transformation. As the Pathfinder 2 accelerated to quantum speed, Alan Wright looked ahead to the stars with a mix of caution and hope. Humanity's greatest challenges and greatest adventures were just beginning. In the depths of space, beyond even the hegemony's knowledge, other human colonies and fleets existed, even more advanced and numerous than those that had defended Earth. Humanity's true extent and power remained hidden, a safeguard against future threats. The galaxy would never be the same. The era of hegemony dominance was ending, and humanity was just getting started.